What happens when humanity tries to reach heaven itself? The Bible tells of a tower so tall, so ambitious, that it shook the foundations of language and culture forever. This is the story of Babel, the boldest mistake mankind ever made. The story begins in the aftermath of the Great Flood. Humanity, scattered yet united by survival, gathers once more upon the plains of Shinar. The earth is fresh with renewal, the soil fertile, and the people determined to rebuild what was lost. But beneath their unity lies a seed of pride, a desire not simply to live, but to rise above the heavens themselves. The descendants of Noah multiplied quickly, filling the land with families, tribes, and bustling communities. They spoke one language, a single tongue that bound them together. This unity was powerful, it meant no barrier of communication, no misunderstanding, no division. Every word spoken was understood by all, every command obeyed without hesitation. In this unity, they saw strength. And in strength, they saw possibility. The people began to dream of greatness, of permanence, of a monument that would declare their power to the generations yet unborn. Come, they said, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth. This was not a dream of worship, nor of gratitude to the God who had spared them from the flood. It was a dream of defiance, of ambition, of pride. They sought to build a monument to themselves, a tower that would pierce the skies and rival the throne of heaven. The plain stretched wide and flat, a perfect canvas for their ambition. Here, the people discovered clay and bitumen, materials strong enough to forge bricks that could withstand the elements. They abandoned stone, choosing instead to mold the earth itself into blocks of their own making. Each brick was a symbol of human ingenuity, each layer a testament to their determination. The city began to rise, walls enclosing the people, streets forming, and at its heart, the foundation of the tower. The tower was no ordinary structure. It was envisioned as a ziggurat, a stairway to the heavens, a ladder of human pride. With each level, they believed they were climbing closer to the divine, closer to immortality, and closer to glory that would never fade. But beneath the mortar and bricks lay something more dangerous than any floodwaters: pride. Pride whispered in their hearts that they could be gods themselves. Pride told them that unity was not for worship but for rebellion. Pride convinced them that their names could echo louder than the name of the Creator. This was the ambition of man, not to honor God, but to replace him. The tower was not a monument of faith but of arrogance. It was humanity's boldest mistake, born from the belief that they could ascend to heaven on their own terms. Imagine the scene: thousands of workers laboring under the sun, sweat dripping from their brows, voices chanting in unison. The clang of tools, the stacking of bricks, the rising walls, all echoing across the plains. Children watched in awe, elders spoke of destiny, and leaders proclaimed that their names would never be forgotten. The tower rose higher and higher, its shadow stretching across the land. Travelers from distant places came to see it, marveling at its scale, whispering of its defiance. The people believed they were unstoppable, that nothing could hinder their progress. If we can build this tower together, they thought, then nothing will be impossible for us. Yet, in their ambition, they ignored the warnings of history. The flood had shown them the power of God and the fragility of human pride. But memory fades, and pride blinds. They forgot the lessons of humility, the call to obedience, and the need for reverence. Instead, they chose rebellion. Instead, they chose glory. Instead, they chose Babel. And so, the tower continued to rise, brick upon brick, ambition upon ambition, pride upon pride. Humanity's boldest mistake was being written in clay and mortar, reaching ever closer to the heavens. This was the ambition of man: to build a city without God, to forge a tower without humility, to make a name without reverence. The plains of Shinar became the stage for humanity's pride, and the Tower of Babel became the symbol of mankind's greatest defiance. But what rises in arrogance must one day fall in judgment. And so, the tower continued to rise, brick upon brick, ambition upon ambition, pride upon pride. Humanity's boldest mistake was being written in clay and mortar, reaching ever closer to the heavens. This was the ambition of man, to build a city without God, to forge a tower without humility, to make a name without reverence. The plains of Shinar became the stage for humanity's pride, and the Tower of Babel became the symbol of mankind's greatest defiance. But what rises in arrogance must one day fall in judgment. The foundation was laid, the vision declared. Now the tower itself began to rise, a monument not of worship, but of pride. Each brick carried the weight of ambition, each layer lifted humanity closer to the heavens. The Tower of Babel was no ordinary construction, it was the embodiment of mankind's defiance, a stairway of arrogance reaching into the clouds. The first stones. The people of Shinar gathered in unity, their voices echoing across the plains. Kilns burned day and night, producing bricks hardened by fire. Bitumen flowed like rivers, binding the bricks together. The air was thick with smoke and determination. Men carried bricks upon their shoulders, women mixed mortar, children fetched water, every hand was employed, every voice united. The city grew, walls enclosing the people, streets forming, and at its heart, the tower began to rise. It was not built in haste, but with precision. Each level was carefully measured, each step designed to climb higher than the last. The people believed they were building eternity itself, a monument that would never crumble, a name that would never fade. As the tower rose, so did its shadow. It stretched across the plains, swallowing villages and fields beneath its reach. Travelers from distant lands marveled at its scale, whispering of its defiance. "Look," they said, "the people of Shinar are building a stairway to heaven." The tower became a beacon of human pride, visible for miles, a symbol of ambition that pierced the horizon. Its shadow was not only physical but spiritual, a darkness of arrogance spreading across the hearts of those who built it. The people were united, but their unity was not in worship. It was in rebellion. They spoke one language, shared one vision, and pursued one goal, to make a name for themselves. "If we can build this tower together," they declared, "then nothing will be impossible for us." This unity was powerful, but it was dangerous. For unity without humility becomes tyranny, and ambition without reverence becomes destruction. The tower was not a monument of faith but of defiance, a declaration that humanity could ascend to heaven without God. With each level, pride grew stronger. The people looked upon their work and saw greatness. They believed they were unstoppable, that their tower would reach the throne of heaven itself. Leaders proclaimed their destiny, elders spoke of immortality, and children dreamed of glory. The tower became more than stone and brick, it became the embodiment of human pride, a monument to self, and a challenge to the Creator. But pride is a fragile foundation. What rises in arrogance must one day fall in judgment. Imagine the scene, the tower piercing the clouds, its peak disappearing into mist. Workers climbing ladders, carrying bricks, and chanting in unison. The sound of construction echoing across the land, a symphony of ambition. The people believed they were climbing closer to heaven, closer to immortality, and closer to glory. But in truth, they were climbing closer to destruction. For the higher they rose, the further they fell from humility, and the further they drifted from God. The Tower of Babel rose not as a monument of worship, but as a monument of pride. Its shadow stretched across the land, its ambition pierced the skies, and its defiance echoed in the hearts of all who built it. But what rises in arrogance must one day fall in judgment. The tower was rising, and so was the pride that would bring it down. The tower rose higher and higher, ambition stacked upon ambition, pride layered upon pride. Humanity believed it was unstoppable. But heaven was watching. And the God who had once judged the world with a flood now looked upon the plains of Shinar with concern. For what was being built was not merely a tower, it was rebellion itself. The scriptures tell us, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. Pause for a moment. The creator of the universe, who spoke galaxies into existence, stooped down to observe the work of man. This detail is powerful. It shows that no matter how high humanity builds, it is still beneath the gaze of God. The tower, though immense to human eyes, was small to the one who reigns over heaven and earth. Yet God did not dismiss it. He saw the danger hidden within their unity. He saw the pride that threatened to consume them. He saw the rebellion that could spread like wildfire across generations. God declared, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." This was not admiration. It was a warning. Humanity's unity, when driven by pride, could lead to limitless rebellion. If they could build a tower to heaven, what else might they attempt? What other defiance might they pursue? The danger was not the tower itself, but the heart behind it. A heart that sought glory without God. A heart that desired immortality without humility. A heart that believed it could rival the Creator. The divine decision. And so, God made a decision. Not to destroy the tower with fire or flood. Not to strike the people with wrath. But to intervene in a way that would humble them without annihilating them. "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." This was a judgment of mercy. Instead of destruction, God chose disruption. Instead of ending humanity, He scattered them. Instead of wrath, He gave them diversity. By confusing their language, God broke their unity. No longer could they speak as one. No longer could they build as one. No longer could they rebel as one. The moment of confusion. Imagine the scene, workers shouting commands, but suddenly their words twisted into sounds no one understood. A bricklayer calls for mortar, but his neighbor hears gibberish. A leader gives orders, but his people stare in confusion. Voices clashed, arguments erupted, and chaos spread. The unity that had once fueled their ambition dissolved into frustration. The tower stood unfinished, abandoned, a monument to pride halted by divine intervention. The people, unable to understand one another, drifted apart. Families gathered with those who spoke the same tongue. Tribes formed, nations emerged, and humanity scattered across the earth. What began as rebellion ended as diversity. Languages multiplied, cultures formed, and nations spread across continents. The scattering of Babel became the seed of civilization. But the tower remained, unfinished, broken, a symbol of humanity's pride and God's intervention. It stood as a reminder that no ambition, no unity, and no rebellion can succeed when it defies the Creator. God's intervention at Babel was not destruction, but mercy. He scattered the people, confused their language, and humbled their pride. The tower fell into silence, its bricks abandoned, its ambition undone. And from that scattering came the nations of the world, a reminder that unity without humility leads to downfall, but diversity under God's design leads to destiny. The tower stood unfinished, its bricks abandoned, its ambition undone. What began as humanity's boldest dream ended in chaos. God's intervention had shattered their unity, and now the people of Shinar faced a new destiny, scattering across the earth, carrying with them new tongues, new cultures, and new paths. The scattering of nations was not merely punishment, it was the birth of diversity, the unfolding of history itself. The plains of Shinar once echoed with a single language, a single vision, and a single ambition. But now, those echoes were broken. Voices clashed, words twisted, and meanings lost. Commands became confusion, songs became noise, and prayers became silence. The unity that had fueled their rebellion dissolved into frustration. Workers abandoned their tasks, families gathered in bewilderment, and leaders shouted in vain. The tower, once a symbol of ambition, became a monument of misunderstanding. No longer could they build together. No longer could they dream together. No longer could they rebel together. The scattering had begun. From the confusion of Babel came the birth of languages. What was once one tongue became many. Words fractured into dialects, sounds split into syllables, and meanings diverged into new expressions. Imagine the moment: a father speaks to his son, but the boy no longer understands. A mother calls to her child, but her words are foreign. Friends who once laughed together now stare in silence, unable to share even a simple thought. This was the power of God's intervention, not destruction, but division. Not wrath, but diversity. The scattering of languages became the seed of nations, the foundation of cultures, and the beginning of history's great tapestry. Families gathered with those who spoke the same tongue. Tribes formed, groups united, and slowly, they began to depart. Some traveled east, others west, some north, others south. The plains of Shinar emptied, the city fell silent, the tower stood abandoned. Each group carried with them not only a new language but a new destiny. They built new homes, new cities, new civilizations. They carved out new identities, new traditions, new stories. The scattering was not the end of humanity, but the beginning of nations. From Babel came Egypt, Babylon, Greece, Rome, and countless others. The diversity of tongues became the diversity of cultures, shaping the world we know today. The Tower of Babel remained, unfinished and broken, a monument to pride halted by divine intervention. Its ruins stood as a reminder of humanity's arrogance, a warning against rebellion, and a symbol of judgment. But it also stood as a marker of mercy. For God did not destroy the people, He scattered them. He did not end humanity, He diversified it. He did not silence their voices, He multiplied them. The legacy of Babel is both caution and creation. A caution against pride and a creation of nations. The scattering of nations teaches us that unity without humility leads to downfall, but diversity under God's design leads to destiny. Humanity sought to build a tower to heaven, but God gave them languages to fill the earth. Humanity sought to make a name for themselves, but God gave them nations to reflect His glory. The lesson of Babel is timeless: pride divides, but humility unites. Ambition destroys, but reverence restores. Rebellion scatters, but obedience gathers. The scattering of nations was not the end, but the beginning. From Babel's confusion came the birth of languages, the rise of cultures, and the unfolding of history. The tower fell silent, but the nations began to speak. And in their diversity, we see the hand of God, a reminder that what man builds in pride, God reshapes in mercy. The Tower of Babel stands as one of the most dramatic lessons in Scripture, a monument to human pride, a symbol of rebellion, and a reminder of God's sovereignty. What began as unity became arrogance. What rose in ambition fell in judgment. And what was scattered in confusion became the nations of the world we know today. The tower, once alive with voices, now stood in silence. Its bricks, once stacked with ambition, lay abandoned. Its shadow, once stretching across the plains, faded into ruin. The people who had dreamed of reaching heaven now wandered the earth, speaking new tongues, building new cultures, and living new destinies. The silence of Babel was not the silence of destruction, but of humility. It was the silence of pride humbled, of ambition halted, of rebellion undone. God's intervention was not wrath, but mercy. He did not destroy humanity as He had with the flood. Instead, He scattered them, giving them diversity, giving them nations, and giving them history. The scattering of Babel reminds us that even in judgment, God's hand is merciful. He reshapes rebellion into destiny, pride into humility, and division into diversity. The Tower of Babel is not just an ancient story, it is a timeless warning. Humanity still builds towers of pride, towers of wealth, towers of power, and towers of ambition. We still seek to make names for ourselves, to rise above others, to reach heaven without God. But Babel reminds us that pride divides, while humility unites. Ambition destroys, while reverence restores. Rebellion scatters, while obedience gathers. The lesson of Babel is clear: what we build in arrogance will crumble, but what we build in faith will endure. The Tower of Babel was humanity's boldest mistake, a monument of pride that fell into ruin. But from its scattering came the nations of the world, a tapestry of languages and cultures woven by the hand of God. Babel teaches us that unity without humility leads to downfall, but diversity under God's design leads to destiny. The tower fell, but its lesson still rises today. If this story moved you, subscribe for more epic Bible mysteries every Sunday. Share this video with someone who loves Scripture, and comment below, what do you think the Tower of Babel teaches us today? Let's explore these mysteries together.